Welcome to this psycho-philosophical spoken word internet series, Inalienable Paradise. This is aimed to providing stories and tactics to help people, even in the most traumatic and inescapable of circumstances, to help people with things universally accessible overcome such circumstances or feelings of terror, worthlessness, and helplessness. We hope we will provide the help that so many people need, and that you will find at least some value in this. Thank you. Hello, friends, listeners, fellow wanderers, patrons, or those who simply find themselves here for any reason. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful for your presence, and I will try to use this time responsibly. Though I confess I don't know exactly how to begin. I was scrolling and, looking at videos as one does late at night. I was doing it idly, I must say, not looking for anything in particular. And I stumbled across Robert Greene, the author of The 48 Laws of Power. I came across his YouTube channel, and he gave a video talking about his appreciation for Friedrich Nietzsche. And there was one little quotation from this video that really inspired me, and I thought fit like a glove the whole message of this series, the whole message of Inalienable Paradise. So I'm going to read to you the quote from Robert Greene. It's as follows. He created this idea called Amor fati, love of fate, embracing your fate, embracing the pain of life. I thought it was a beautiful thing when I read it, through the lens of how much he suffered, and he created that philosophy is actually mind-blowing. So when I read that, I paused. I kind of let the words sit there for a moment, because this is something that is very much worth thinking about. Because this is a message that is not actually really in the words themselves. It could hardly be more simple. Love your fate, that's fine. Poets have been saying that probably since there's been poetry. But you also have to remember who it is, which is Friedrich Nietzsche. And suddenly it in an abstract way shifts from becoming less like a quote and more like a miraculous phenomenon. Because if you know even a fragment of his life, if you've brushed past the bio in a book or stared at his pretty haunting last photos of him when he's bedridden at his cabin, these very, his enormous mustache and deeply recessed eyes, and he suffered. He suffered so much, it feels almost fictional. I believe it was from an illness that is easily treatable today, so it's hard for anyone alive today to understand the pain. Just the migraines, the solitude, the heartbreaks, the descent. And yet, that was the man who said, love your fate. Not accept it, not endure it, love it. It is not just improbable, it is almost impossible that at any point in this universe a philosopher would come to that conclusion at the end of his life. And yet it happened. After a philosopher suffered this much. And that's really the message of what I want to talk about. Because philosophy, while philosophy is often cold, it's often built from abstraction, from ideal conditions, from very rigid systems, and hardly from a place that's on fire. So this very warm, very optimistic idea was not born in a calm room. They were dragged out of an inferno. So it changes everything once you know context of this Amor fati. He wasn't celebrating pleasure. He wasn't praising success. He wasn't even advocating hope. He was doing something stranger, something a little more dangerous, something less systematic, to say the very least. He was saying yes to the unbearable. He was saying, let it come again. And that's what strikes me. That's what I keep returning to. Because it feels, in a sense, like a miracle of cognition, that someone could travel that far into pain and suffering and come back with affirmation and optimism. This is not a strategy. It's not a method, obviously. It's a posture. It's one that says, I will not curse what happens. I will not resent my role. I will not disown the thread I've been given. I will affirm it. All of it. Amor fati. And I think in the context of this series, Inalienable Paradise, that phrase means everything. Because Nietzsche's life was not one of comfort, was not really one of safety, but in the midst of this rather tumultuous life, he provided a philosophy which could give you, if passionate enough, could provide you with a kind of inner invincibility, a worldview that can't be broken. Not because it's armored, but because it's surrendered. And I believe there's something holy in that. Something that's not bound to Nietzsche or Green or me, but something available to anyone who has stood in front of something awful and said, okay, I won't run, I'll make it mine. So while I'm thinking about this just organically in my spontaneous, extemporaneous thinking right now, this immediately is bringing me back to a absolutely amazing TED Talk that was given by Professor Bernie Dunlap. It's called The Lifelong Learner. It's still to this day my favorite TED Talk I've ever watched. It has left me in tears several times. It's about Bernie Dunlap's relationship with some mentors of his, and using the lives of three very hard lives of historical people from Hungary, and what he's learned from them. And he's talking about a man that he calls Mr. Chesler, who was in a concentration camp and later, lived a life of comparative serenity, being on his farm and kind of living the quiet life. And he talks about a memory of this Mr. Chesler, and I'm about to read to you the quotation now, because it's such a wonderful thing for me to have stumbled upon. And I quote, "It was only after Mr. Chesler's death that I learned that the marker on the grave of Bella Bartok in Hartsdale, New York, was paid for by Sandor Chesler. Yo napat Bella." Not long before Mr. Chesler's own death at the age of 97, he heard me hold forth on human iniquity. I delivered a lecture in which I described history as, on the whole, a tidal wave of human suffering and brutality. And Mr. Chesler came up to me afterwards with gentle reproach and said, "You know, Doctor, human beings are fundamentally good." And I made a vow to myself then and there. And this is it, this is the juice. That if this man, who had such cause to think otherwise, had reached that conclusion, I would not presume to differ until he released me from my vow. And now he's dead, so I'm stuck with my vow. Jaunapat Sandor, which is a Hungarian phrase. So, in that I immediately returned back to that quote when thinking about Amor fati. It's sort of, I guess, a more existentially intense version of civil disobedience, where, you know, when you've been, for example, brought up in a very abusive environment as a child, but yet at the end of your life you conclude that people are worthwhile, people are worth being around. You know, people are worth trusting yourself with. You know, to go against your own system like that, to go against your own body and your own intuition in such a brave manner is, in my opinion, very holy. That is inalienable, and that is paradise. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this installment of Inalienable Paradise. If you are in some need to talk with or connect with another person, my top resources would be 7cups.com and the Upper Room Crisis Hotline at 1-888-808-8724. And they are both free of charge. And I will top this off with a Carl Sagan adage: even through your hardest days, remember we are all made of stardust.